again, I don't think you can talk about it too much. I get sick of talking about it, but
No,
Maybe that's the thing. I just get tired talking about it myself, Scott.
yeah.
you get sick of hearing yourself. But I mean, it's everything.
Welcome to the Made for Agriculture podcast. Today's host is Adam Jones.
All right, folks, welcome to another episode of the Made for Agriculture podcast. My name's Adam Jones, and this morning we've got our regional agronomist on the line again. We're going to talk a little bit about this 2025 crop. We're kind of off to a slower start, and I'm sure some of these guys will cover that in some of their reports. But we were actually just kicking around before we got going here that we had looked up, and for 2025, recording this on June 13th. And so for North Missouri, we are about 35 GDUs behind normal and over 100 behind 23 and 24. So if it feels like we're a little behind and talking about things a couple weeks later than we probably talked about them last year, that is accurate for 2025 for a lot of our trade territory. So anyway, we're to go around the horn. I know we've got conditions kind of all over the board, but a lot of things still going on now, even though it is, believe it or not, almost mid-June. There's still a lot of things going on in the field, post applications and everything. So I'm sure these guys have a lot to say about all that. Let's start, I guess Craig's at the top of my screen. So let's start with Mr. Craig Russell.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Yeah, Adam's right. I mean, we are a little bit behind in some instances, and really kind of that crop growth stage is pretty spread out. And I think Scott had kind of mentioned to it before we got started here too. I mean, you just depending on where you're at, things that can be pretty variable out there as far as just growth staging and where we're at. A lot of corn still, that later planted corn still kind of needing to get that second herbicide pass laid down, get those weeds cleaned up and everything before we get to canopy. A lot of this earlier corn, we finally have a pretty good canopy developed and looking, B10 or so. Are starting to see a little bit of some disease pop up. I know Megan Adkins over there on the northeast side of the state had found a little bit of northern corn leaf blight here this past week, and there is some tar spot that kind of got reported over in Donovan County, just right across the river over here on the northwest side of the territory. So we've got some things to kind of look out for. We're still, at least a few weeks away from tassel, and part of that is just we are a little bit behind this year, probably too, to a degree. But don't just be super reactive and go out and put a fungicide out there just because you have disease. I mean, there's a lot of other things we can do to try and manage for disease just in general of trying to promote good crop health. So, I mean, top dress applications, if you're needing to do those, and just controlling weeds and other pests are a really good way at just keeping that crop healthy and allowing it to fight off some of those diseases and stuff itself too. So soybeans are kind of starting to bloom up here as well. Some of those beans are awfully small too, with just being a little bit behind on some of our normal GDUs and growing conditions, just not quite being as ideal. So the overlapping residual is probably going to be as key as ever, just because even a lot of those earlier planted beans that got put in, the first week of April are still at least 2-3 weeks out from canopy in a lot of cases, it seems like. So I know we kind of stress that, it seems like every week on the podcast, but it's important. So we're probably a couple weeks away from harvest getting kicked off up here. So there's been a lot of stripe rust kind of has really popped off here the last couple weeks and really got going. I don't know, not going to say that it's not a concerning disease, but we at least are not seeing it any earlier than what we did. And a lot of those fields had a fungicide application to kind of help throughout those more critical stages of drain fill too. So, but that's kind of what I've got going on up here.
No, it's good stuff, Craig. I think it is all over the board. Some guys are behind on some people done on spraying and stuff, on posting and everything, and there's some folks that are behind too. Don't be afraid to get back out there and walk and take notes and note what you've done this year. We've walked some fields this week and seemed extremely variable. You go in one field and it's like, hey, whatever we sprayed here, whatever the grower sprayed here, absolutely hammered everything. And go the next field over, and then they're trying to pass it the third time with a rescue treatment of impact on corn, trying to kill, knee-eye water hemp. And so I think it's important to look at your herbicide program, figure out what you're doing, what you're putting out there, and what you can do to make it better if you're seeing those kind of results. Because it seems like the corn is where I've seen the most trouble so far this year. But yeah, good stuff. Scott, what's going on in Central Missouri?
Kind of depends on where you're at. Pretty diverse from east to west and even north to south. I made a pretty good circle yesterday, just going all the way out west on 70, and then kind of came back across I guess it was 10 and 24. And if you're east of 63, at least the northern end of that territory, we'd had a lot of rain and on top of a late crop, so there's quite a few beans that you can just barely row, or we're still trying to determine what's going on. A lot of smaller corn that we talk about this all the time. Feel like a broken record, but it generates so much phone calls. I don't know how I don't talk about it, but just you got a lot of that corn that just kind of in that ugly stage, V4, V5. Hasn't quite found the gas yet, and the corn that has found the gas is really leaving it behind, so it creates that that delta that just it's kind of concerning. But then on top of that, at least like I say, on the east side where it had so much rain, I'm seeing quite a few plants that have the orange leaves and just some discoloration that is more indicative of lack of oxygen in the soil just from being saturated, and that puts it even a little further behind. I really feel like the forecast that we have coming up, in this next week is going to be very helpful on that. So I'm not pushing the panic button by any means, but those are the things that we're seeing, and you get a lot of phone calls, and a lot of pictures sent, and that kind of thing. Now, as I say that, it's raining right now, and I went out and checked about an hour ago and already had a quarter inch. So I mean, we were just barely starting to get to the point that you can maybe think about a little field work in a few places, but that's going to be set back a little further yet. Yeah, you get over the middle of the state, and they were wetter too, but a lot of those folks were able to get back in the field, and the crop a little bit further along. But then you get on the west side, and when I was out there yesterday, and you've got a lot of 3 and 4 foot tall corn. And now the one thing that I will say that all of my folks this week, I kind of cheat when I write my weekly article. I hit everybody up to, hey, give me your crop stages, give me kind of the highlights, lowlights, rainfall, all that kind of stuff. And they all mentioned how beans are just slow. And that's one thing that was just very consistent is I was just watching all day yesterday, all the way across the state, just a lot of little beans, kind of that lime green, really following the contour of the field. If you get in an area that's held water, they really seem to be slower. On the east side where we were posting in some of this shorter corn, over the last couple of weeks, we came out of that Friday that got down in the 40s, a few weeks, probably 3 weeks ago today. And, anything on either side of that, we saw a fair amount of crop response across the area. I think a lot of that corn just was not taking off. Well, I think now we're starting to see a little bit of that in some of our beans. So just be aware of that. When a crop's not, when a crop hasn't really taken off, you're gonna maybe show a little more of a response. It sits there in chemical a little longer, but just to reiterate something we always talk about, we got to have those residuals, but we need growing weather so that the plant can process it. Kind of jumping around a little bit, guys, but Craig mentioned tar spot. We're definitely on the look for that now. We're starting to find rust in our corn, so diseases are starting to show. Kind of echo what Craig said. At least early on, there are times that I'll pull a fungicide out early if you get into some kind of a special situation. You get into some, possibly some anthracnose on some corn on corn or continuous corn or things like that. But overall, I'm kind of like him. I'm more worried about overall plant health at this early stage. We're going to find a little bit of disease, but usually it doesn't really take off until till that plant moves into reproductive. So generally speaking, without knowing specific circumstances, I'm like him. I want to kind of keep it in the jug until we get closer to VT. If anything, what I'm more concerned about, I'm surprised how much potash deficiency I've looked at this year in corn. We always kind of blame that on a dry weather thing, and I always kind of argue a little bit. Dry weather doesn't cause it; it reveals it. But this year I'm looking at it in plenty of moisture and seen it quite a few places. So that's a little concerning to me. In one field, I sent some tests off, and I'm real creative in my labeling. I call my samples good and bad, and my bad sample came back super low. My good sample came back just low. So I mean, there's just a lot of low levels out there, and something that needs to be addressed. The last thing, before you kill my mic, we're a little bit concerned. We were starting to find some leaf hoppers down south. Last year, the corn leaf hopper came up from the south, and we had a lot of disease across the state, kind of a new to us disease, corn stunt. And Mariah Ferguson, one of my consultants down, she found some south of Jeff City, and sent some pictures into plant pathology. And then, they looked at those, and then also they've been checking them across the state. And fortunately, it is not the actual corn leaf hopper, the one that we're concerned about. And then our state entomologist sent out a report. I think as of this Wednesday, 2 days ago, they had not found any in the state yet. So hopefully that's something that maybe was a one-off last year, but we're continuing to keep our eye open. So that's all I got.
Sounds good. Thanks, Scott. Good stuff. All right, Jesse, you're up. You get to be our southernmost reporter today. So tell us what's going on down there.
Okay. Well, like Scott, it's raining this morning. I think I just went out and checked before we got on here. We're sitting at 1 inch, and it's still raining. Got a little rain over last weekend, so we only had a couple days here of running. Well, to be honest with you, there was very little planting going on, just spraying. A couple guys got some wheat harvest started, but it was just, they were picking and choosing where they could go. But we're to the point now where you just got to go. This wheat's only going to get in worse shape the more rain we get. Now, granted, I say that it's supposed to be nice next week. We're supposed to be 90s all week, but no rain. So I look for guys to hit it pretty hard. As far as the corn and beans, we're just all over the board like Scott. I mean, I got corn that's V3 all the way to, we put some pre-tassel nitrogen on this week and probably fungicide next week on some corn, which just, it's all over the place. Beans are the same way. We got beans that are almost chest tall on me, and then some still need to be planted. I'm going to talk about herbicides here in a minute. I don't want to bash it because Jonesy might make fun of me because I always get hung up on herbicides. But I think we're going to have a good run next week for planting. Like Jones said, I don't think we're that far behind compared to normal. So you get a good run next week. I think just keep planting what you can, especially beans. Good week can make a big difference for us. I think in general, we got a couple of pockets that are way behind, but you look across our territory, we're not that far behind as far as planting progress. Outside of that, we're just kind of taking it week by week, waiting for this good run. I do want to talk about herbicides. We're going to get up in the 90s next week. I know I talk about this every summer. Once we get hot, pigweeds get bigger, they're growing faster, they're just harder to kill in general. I know last year between training camp and me talking, we talk a lot about two-passing Liberty, two-passing and less than Liberty, just kind of whatever your flavor is. But what we seen last year is if you get something that's out of control, just as long as you're back in there 7 days after you sprayed the first time with Liberty, you're using 3 pound AMS, gallon per 100 crop oil, 20 gallons of water. We're having pretty good luck with it. I'm not saying it's perfect, but a whole lot better than one passing it. And Adam, I listened to a podcast yesterday in Mississippi State with Jason Bond, and he talks a lot about Liberty because it's been a few years since we relied on it as heavy as what we're going to rely on it this year. So I think we'll put it in the show notes, and I'll put it in my inside article. It's a 30-minute podcast. It's actually really good. He just talks a lot about Liberty and what they've seen over the years and kind of that. So just, I know I said it 2 weeks ago. I'll say it again. Start clean. Like, that's the easiest way for you to keep your weeds under control is start clean. Whether it means working it again or burning it down again, you're going to be by far happier. I know money's tight this year. Things aren't looking well, but it's a lot cheaper to control them now than try to do it in season.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we may be behind a little bit on our GDUs from a corn crop standpoint, but some of the water hemp plants I've seen that don't seem to be running behind at all. They're still growing extremely fast this time of year. And yeah, I mean, we're catching these rains and you get knocked out of the field for a week or two, and all of a sudden your on-label water hemp are way off-label.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because sometimes I beat this in the head, but especially this year, I ain't blaming nobody for some of these messes. It's just what the good Lord gave us, and we're just dealing with it.
Absolutely. You got to deal with it. But as you mentioned, the best thing that you can do to kind of mitigate some of that risk you have in those narrower spray windows is have a decent product down ahead of time. Keep them from germinating, because once they're there, they grow really, really fast. So, yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, it's a good comments on Liberty, right? I mean, because in no matter what soybean system that you're currently running, no matter what one you're looking into the future that you think might be a some sort of magic bullet for you, if we don't have Liberty, they're all pretty bad. So it's something that we definitely lean on. I mean, that's what you lean on to actually control what's out there. So and the future systems are that way too. I mean, there's a reason they're leaving the Liberty tolerance in there, because it's the only product that's actually really doing something right now. So absolutely good stuff. Nope. Appreciate that.
I don't think you can talk about it too much, Jesse, but it's surprising to me. It's actually one of the things that pops up when I'm interviewing folks. You know, when we kind of get to the point that we're actually talking about the job, and I'll ask, sir, are you familiar with water hemp? And it's amazing to me how often they are not, even after coming out of school and everything. And in a lot of cases, they're kind of annoyed after I tell them how big of a deal it is. They're like, how did I make it? How many years through,
Yeah.
But I mean, and at times I'll say, well, hop in the truck. We're going to go out and look for some. And I'm doing a podcast, bud. Little man just got up. Guess I put him on the podcast. But we will, lost my train of thought. I talked to him about all the systems that's changed. I mean, everything. We used to incorporate fertilizer, liquid fertilizer. We used to incorporate our chemical. We applied chemical with field cultivators. We had liquid plants. Just go on and on and on about it. And it's like, listen, you need to get familiar with this thing, because if you're going to stay in this business, this is the next 30, 40 years of your life. And I don't think you can it has become such a big thing just culturally, and how we manage so many other things that, again, I don't think you can talk about it too much. I get sick of talking about it. But
No,
maybe that's the thing. I just get tired talking about it myself, Scott.
Yeah.
you get sick of hearing yourself. But I mean, it's everything.
correct.
Half the phone calls I get in some shape or form throughout the year, it's all about.
Absolutely. No, that's right. It's both crops. It's just, yeah, it's everything, right? When you're looking at chemistries, and yeah, I think you get sick of it more so because you feel like you've said everything that there is to say, but not everybody thinks about it in the kind of detail that you guys think about it in. So keep saying it, because there's still folks out there that need to hear what you guys are talking about. So with that, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap her up for today. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Craig, Jesse, and Scott, as always, much appreciate your all's time. Much appreciate the timely messaging that we're able to get out to folks, get out to growers and our employees that listen in. So appreciate everybody's time this morning, and we'll talk to you next episode.
Thank you for listening to Made for Agriculture, brought to you by MFA, your whole farm solution.